Welcome to the CBT Dive, a vodcast that goes into the lives of real people with real struggles. Each episode welcomes a new guest who wants to explore a challenging situation using the most common cognitive behavioural therapy tool, the thought record. Your host, Raheem Thawa, is a social worker and psychotherapist based in Toronto and well known for his work in LGBTQ communities. He's created the CBT Dive to demystify what therapy can look like and share intervention skills for wellness. We hope that each episode helps you along on your own journey for insight and self-compassion.
Hi, and welcome to the CBT Dive. I'm excited to have Brown Gay Realness join us today. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good. So Brown Gay Realness is this fabulous person who's on YouTube and has her own channel. So go check him out. And I'll tell you a little bit about him. So BGR for short is a queer Fijian guy in his mid-30s, originally from Edmonton and living in Toronto. He lives with mild myofascial pain syndrome. And like many of us, he struggles with anxiety. He had some awful side effects from the use of medication and turned to his spirituality and CBT skill building not too long ago. In September 2020, he suffered a severe concussion. And though he's well into his recovery, he's been more in touch with his grief than ever in the last year. A lot's been going on with you.
Sorry?
COVID. COVID and recovering from serious injury, dealing with chronic illness and disability, and you've had some interpersonal losses. How are you feeling today?
To be honest, I'm feeling good. I'm in like an okay emotional space. I started like really learning how to like be authentic with my feelings, but also in a way that's approachable and non-aggressive and like recognizes like the other people. So today I'm like feeling really good. Well, I'm feeling up and down, to be honest. A little bit of family news has come up. So with every good day comes a little bit of bad, right? So you kind of have to.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I would love for our listeners to know a bit about Brown Gay Realness. What do you put out there on your YouTube channel?
Sure. So I just launched, and basically my background is I'm a business strategy management consultant. So my background is really in behavior and consumer behavior. Basically, why do people do things? How do we manipulate them? So I've been really interested in behavior and like behavioral psychology as like a side study. I'm actually thinking about maybe going back to school for getting like a counseling degree, and maybe transitioning in the next few years that way. But so I basically work on how to manipulate behavior. And so I decided, a lot of people ask me, they're like, how do you understand, like, how do you have like an understanding of the world and of how things happen? So I decided to put out on my YouTube channel, just kind of like explaining human behavior and the whys of behavior. And I recently just started with some videos about South Asian history and kind of building up into queerness and South Asian history. And then going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is called whiteology. And it's basically a study into the cultural background and behavioral effects of whiteness.
Fascinating. Okay.
Controversial.
Well, and you asked how I'm doing. I'm doing much better. Like now that I'm hearing about this great like content you're producing. I'm also interested in consumer psychology, although I don't know very much about it. So it looks like we'll be trading skills for some time.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and go ahead. Tell me.
Sorry, I was going to say, if you're interested, Paco Underhill is a great kind of intro.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's called Why We Buy.
I will add it to my reading list.
For sure.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to work through a thought record, which is, of course, very different. The topic we've picked is very different from anything to do with consumer behavior. It'll be new terrain for you, hopefully.
Yeah, fully, 100%. Yeah, and I'm excited for this as well.
Great. So Um, let's begin with just confirming that this is still the situation you're interested in analyzing. So, just for context for our listeners, over the last year, you got into some conflict with some of your friends, one at a time or all together. They kind of decided to continue on as a group, but without you. And it was painful, but kind of made sense for you, it seems. Like you understood that there was, like you agreed that there was a conflict. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not
And just
necessarily
recently,
entirely on my part, but I do
no,
recognize that like I did have a role to play in it. That was significant.
absolutely. Absolutely. And just a week ago, was it? You had a fight with your
Ugh,
boyfriend.
yeah.
Was it a week
Like
ago?
4 days ago, it was Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you leave his place or wherever you guys were, and you run into these like recently estranged friends,
Yeah.
and you avoided them. So you went a different
Yeah.
direction. You didn't want to see them.
Yeah.
So my question would be like, so there's a lot going on here contextually, but when you ran
Yeah.
into your friends again, this is a group of how many people? 4 people, 5 people?
I think like anywhere from about like 7 to 10 people. Like a close like 6 people, I guess. But like the group can expand to about 10 people, sometimes 12 people.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, but yeah, I saw the main group of like 6 people. And
Okay.
yeah, it was a little bit like my first initial reaction was like
Yeah.
I didn't actually see, I saw one guy who I was kind of like, we didn't end on a bad terms or anything. We just weren't like close friends, so we didn't keep in touch.
Okay.
Um, and so I was gonna say hi to him, and then beside him I saw this other guy that I was like, looked at me and I could see the recognition in his face, and like we locked eyes, and I was just like, I can't deal with this, and then like turned my head to the side and then walked around them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think
Okay.
my initial kind of thought, honestly, like right after, like literally right afterwards, was like, do you mind if I swear
No, go
or no?
ahead.
So my initial thought, honestly, was like, fuck these guys. Like, none of them have bothered to reach out to me more than once over the last 10 months. And like, we have to, like, if I see them in public, I'm under this like false, social construct that I have to pretend and be like, oh my God, hi, it's been so great. I love you. I miss you. But then
Mm,
in the inside, I'm like, I really actually just don't think that these are healthy relationships.
okay.
Possibly, yeah,
So,
or healthy people
yeah,
for me to be around, and maybe I don't bring
yeah.
out the best in them.
Okay. So you'll notice we've skipped a couple of columns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, sorry.
No, no, apologize. I'm just going to slow us down and take us back a little bit. So,
Yeah, yeah.
when you ran into these friends, um, and you immediately avoided them, um, what did that look like? You took a turn, like you went onto a different street?
No, I literally, because they were standing on the corner that I had to cross, so I either had to walk through them or like swerve around them, and they were about a total group of about like, yeah, 10 or 11 people.
Wow. And what
Uh,
did you choose to do? Did you just swerve around?
I swerved around. I just
And were
completely,
you in a
because most of
car
them,
or were you driving?
no, I was walking. So
You were
I'm mostly,
walking. Okay.
yeah. So like they were all standing on the corner, and I was walking up to them, and only one person had noticed me, and I was kind of like, thank God. And I was like, none of them else saw me. I'm going to speed up and walk around them before the other guy has a chance to be like,
Ah,
hey. So my like, honestly, yeah, I guess like my first initial feeling was like
yes.
flight,
Tell
I
me the
guess.
feelings. Flight. So,
Yeah.
um,
Was like, I
and
was like angry and like also like just like fuck this, and then was like, I need to get out of here.
yes, absolutely. So, flight, anger. Sometimes flight is connected to fear or anxiety.
I think
Would
it
you
was
say
a little bit there. Yeah, for sure. Not
both
like fear,
feelings?
but like anxiety, like severe. Yeah, like fear. Yeah, because there was like one person that I was super close with that had made it very clear to me, like by not responding to me at all in any way over the last like 7 months, 6 months, that like they didn't want a relationship with me. and they're kind of like the leader or crux of the group. And so
Mm.
like if like the expectation would be that if I saw them, everybody thought that I'm in the wrong entirely. So I should be like profusely apologizing or being like,
Mm.
oh, it's okay. But I also felt like I need my feelings recognized. I think that's where the anger
Sure.
was kind of coming from, being
Yes.
like, I don't want to
Yes.
act fake for no reason when I don't deserve an apology, but I just want to feel like you're sorry as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know. This may be a
No, I hear you.
stupid
I hear you.
yeah.
Um, I wonder
I
if,
just didn't want to like I was having this anxiety between like being not authentic and like being authentic, which would have been like very angry. Like I wouldn't have been in
yeah,
like the greatest state to like confront them about things, you know? It was
yeah.
just not the
Okay, so
time for me to see them.
based on the description of what was going on in your mind and some of the feelings, we've got flight,
Yeah.
anger,
Yeah.
fear, anxiety, animosity. I'm going to
And
suggest a few feelings.
sadness.
Yeah, okay, great. It
Yeah.
does seem like there is a lot of sadness because there's like a sense of
And
loss. Yeah, go ahead.
almost kind of like right immediately after I walked past them, a sense of a little bit of regret.
Hmm. And I wonder if that conversation with like the head leader, you know, if that leads to a kind of embarrassment or humiliation.
100%, because that's how I exited the group, was like being humiliated in front of the entire group.
Ah,
So like
okay.
this person was more drunk than I was. I had maybe had half a beer. He had been a few into it, thought that I had called him privileged, and as well the rest of the group kind of latched onto that. And he just like severely humiliated me in front of the group, made himself the victim, and then I walked away. And then basically since then, there was like no contact almost. Very
Okay.
limited. Yeah, very limited
So,
contact.
and so
Um,
you're thinking a lot about how they see you and understand you. And the word
yeah,
that feeling word that comes up for me there is self-conscious.
yeah. And
Yeah.
like I think it's because like I to be honest, like it feels like it's kind of like passed down a little bit because like um my family, it's like just a general rule in us that like suffer through humiliation with like your head held high, but as well that like if you're not showing any reaction here, you're like internalizing it.
Yeah.
And
So there's
like
a kind of
feeling humiliated,
stealthness.
yeah, it makes me
Would we
feel
call
weak.
that
Like the
okay?
entire situation made me feel like weak as a person because I
Okay.
didn't know really um how I wanted to react and how I should have reacted, if that was correct, if I, this idea of correctness, like
Mm,
was I correct in like my actions?
okay. So I'm thinking about feeling words.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. I'm just thinking, okay, so when you keep your head held high, is that pride? Is that stealthness? I'm trying to figure out what the word is.
Well, it's like the way I understand it in Hindi is like
Yeah,
it's like swabimanta, which is like it can translate to pride or arrogance, but it's more like, so pride would be like gaman and arrogance,
yeah,
which is like something that's like forceful and negative, whereas
yeah.
swabimanta is like self-worth. Like I
Ah,
kind of
okay.
feel like to be honest, I kind of felt slightly positive because I had felt like, I'd spent about 6 months dealing with like kind of emotional distancing from these people and like feeling like I was invalidated. And then, another kind of 10 months of like being completely estranged and isolated from them. So
Mm,
I felt like I was worthless a little bit through that period. And then like I felt like like part of the good thing I felt walking away was like I felt like I valued myself a little bit more.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, um, so okay, you name the feeling weak, um,
Yeah.
and then you use the word swabimanta. And
Yeah.
is a rough equivalent to that feeling unworthy?
No, it's more like a positive word. It's more like
Oh, it's a
Swabimanta
positive
is
word.
more like it's like like I guess you could say self-pride, but like satisfaction, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Like trusting yourself almost, kind of.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. So I think we're gonna, that's part of the language you're thinking in, and so I think we've got to include that word.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I think in
and
Hindi sometimes about my feelings.
yeah, no, and that's perfect. I think we need to capture that. Okay, we've got a good list of feelings. I'm gonna read them out, and then just think about how they feel in your body as though you were in that situation. And then I'm going to ask you to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of intensity. And so 10 will be intense and 1 not intense at all. So there's flight, anger, fear, anxiety, animosity, sadness, regret, embarrassed, humiliated, self-conscious, weak, swabimanta. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you rate flight?
I think flight, angry, fear, and anxiety are all like super high and equal, like 9 for all 4 of those first ones.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
um and that includes anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, so flight, anger, fear, and anxiety are all 9s. Okay,
Yeah.
now animosity.
Maybe like a 3 or a 4, and I would say that's almost balanced with this kind of like wistful like sense of love that's like
Mm,
missed, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like you can't really hate, like be an enemy with someone unless you have some love for them as well, because there has to be a relationship there to like
ah,
balance it out. So it's like,
yeah.
yeah,
Does that fit into regret and remorse, do you think? Or do you think
yeah,
that's its own
100%. The
feeling?
regret, the animosity and the
Okay,
regret is like the
yeah.
equal, like the 4. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about sadness on a scale of 1 to 10.
Think like a 6 or 7.
Okay, and regret,
Yeah, like a 4.
embarrassed in that moment,
Um, like a 2, a 1 or a 2
Hu-
actually. Yeah.
humiliated,
10.
mm,
Yeah.
self-conscious.
Like again, like maybe like a 2,
Okay. Feeling weak.
maybe like a 7 or 8.
Okay. And Swabimanta.
Maybe like about a 7.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna organize these a little bit in
Yeah.
terms of just the
It's
intensity
interesting
of
to see it like that.
yeah.
To like think about it in that hierarchy of how I was feeling in that moment.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna try to organize them by intensity so that you can kind of see them grouped together. Um, All right. So,
Yeah.
in order of most intense, the least intense, humiliated, flight, anger, fear, anxiety, weak, sadness, swabimanta, animosity, regret, embarrassed, self-conscious. And we know what you did in the moment. You avoided the group
Yeah.
by walking around them.
And I feel bad that I made a pointed note to like when I locked eyes with one of the guys to look the other way as he was recognized me. I kind of like I don't really like that I did that, but
Mm,
it was just my natural reaction in that moment.
yeah. And
That's the exact moment I think I felt like the humiliated flight, anger, fear, anxiety.
I see. It's like you were found out, you were caught, you were exposed.
Almost, or like, because like I feel like that means that like I was like kind of like stalking them, but I feel more that I was just kind of like in that moment I felt like there was like the reality where I had like dealt with a lot of my feelings, and like the reality that like the theoretical idea in my head that I had dealt with is like
Mhm.
presented with me like right in front of me, and like it's hard to like it's hard to like balance the idea of the person that you had to like deal with to overcome emotionally versus the actual person and the feelings of friendship and love that you might have for them still, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There's a lot to hold in that moment. It seems like you're talking about behaviorally, you're snubbing somebody, but actually
but
you're
I
looking
felt
away because
snubbed
it's
by
too
them.
pain. Right. And it feels too
Yeah,
painful to hold.
yeah,
You're like, oh, there was a lot here. I'm gonna
yeah.
move over to the next column, which is your automatic thoughts, right? So your automatic thoughts are the things that come into your mind in this particular situation. Now, it's particularly helpful, I think, that we've listed out all of the feelings because there might be some thoughts that are connected to the feelings specifically. Um, so, for example, you mentioned animosity. And then one of the thoughts you also mentioned was no one has bothered to reach out to me in the last 10 months, right? I see those as a bit as connected. Um,
Yeah.
these are not healthy people for me to be around is another thing you said, and they might think I'm stalking them. Is that, might be a fleeting thought, but it's something that crossed your mind.
Oh no, that's
um
like an actual like genuine thing just because of the way that these people talk. They have a bit
oh,
of like a self-aggrandizing way and like to
okay.
a lot of the time it's like the perception from my side has been that like you can't say that you're the hero of your own story because then everybody else is the enemy. You have to understand where your actions were good and bad. But these are the type
Mm,
of people that are like the heroes of their own story, so everyone else is an asshole. And so it's just kind of
ah,
like for example, like being called a hypocrite, where I like try to come at people with a lot of compassion and understanding, but then like being pushed to my limit and breaking and then being told that I'm a hypocrite for that, it's like almost like too much anger because it's like, yeah, I guess that is a reality about myself that like maybe I am
right.
being hypocritical because I have a limit to my
Mm,
compassion, right?
right.
Um,
So,
and so all
okay,
of that like just made me so angry. It's just like seeing
absolutely.
that and like just
Yeah,
seeing people that humiliated me and didn't feel bad about it at all and felt that it was deserved, that I deserved it, or just don't
yeah.
recognize what they did. Like it was just
And
like,
so in the behavior column, I'm just putting like you remember the original conflict and being called a hypocrite.
and
That was a big,
arrogant and self-centered and
oh my goodness. Arrogant.
yeah, dramatic, um, that I give them anxiety when I talk to them.
Okay. So, okay. Um, I cause them anxiety
Yeah,
when I talk to them. Okay,
yeah.
so let's think about some of these thoughts you've got here. First, I want to expand on them a bit. So, when you say you feel humiliated at a rate at 10, can you tell me what thought might be connected to your experience of humiliation? So, I'm humiliated because, or yeah, I'm humiliated because, let's start with that.
Um, I'm humiliated because I was pushed to my limit and it made me realize that like I am a hypocrite, I guess, in that sense.
Mm,
Um, or I feel like a hypocrite in that sense. So
okay, so
like I lost some feeling of authenticity for myself and like self-value because I had always thought that like where I thought I was coming off genuine and like trying to be compassionate and like empathetic and like genuinely trying to be there, it
mm,
was being read from the start as a complete act. And then in the end, when I got pushed to my limit, that was validated by them. Um,
okay. So
and then
the
also just
it,
not having space with them to like understand my experience because they thought it was too heavy.
mm,
Yeah.
so there's a sense that they or people
Yeah. Well,
won't
like one person that
understand.
like took it on them
Mhm.
to like speak for the group. And so so this person said that this is what everybody is thinking and nobody refuted it. And like she, yeah. So
Yeah. This one person who spoke for the group, I imagine that makes you very angry.
Yeah.
that there's this kind of group. You have a strong reaction to this group dynamic, huh? Of like
Yeah, I
having a
do.
ringleader and the group think,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing that's where the anger comes from.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think it like goes back a little bit, like being a part of like team sports and being always considered the weak link. So being called out by the ringleader as being the weak link.
Mm,
Um, yeah. I think honestly you just said that and that's where it feels like it comes back. Like I imagine soccer.
okay, yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah. Or like
According
rugby.
to according to the ringleader, I'm the weakest link.
Yeah.
Okay,
And like
so
constantly
here,
being told how I need to fix myself and like or being given justification for why I'm being forgotten or why I should not take like why I'm not justified in having feelings that I have.
mm, okay. Um, Tell me about the sadness you experience. What are the thoughts connected to the sadness and regret?
The sadness is that like that again, like it was just so easy for them to like cut me out that like makes me feel like again like that like self that like loss of
You were just
self-value
you
because
were
I'm just like easy to throw
disposable.
away. Yeah. So it's like maybe I don't actually bring anything of value to people. That's I think where like the sadness definitely like
Yeah.
comes in for sure.
Okay. I'm gonna read through these automatic thoughts because I've been writing away as you've been talking and trying to put them in different orders. So here's what we've got.
Yeah.
Some of the thoughts connected to your feelings in this situation are one of the things you're saying is some of the terrible things these friends said may have been true to some degree, like being hypocritical. So these friends or people in general, won't understand my experience because it's too heavy. According to the ringleader, I'm the weakest link and I need to fix myself. No one has bothered to reach out to me in the last 10 months. These are not healthy people for me to be around. I cause them anxiety when I talk to them.
And that was actually like a specific statement that was told to me by the ringleader.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. And then they think I'm stalking them, or they might think I'm stalking them. And I'm easy to throw away.
Again, that
I'm
comes
not.
from the ringleader. That's like a statement that she said. Yeah.
Oh, really? She said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
She
that
said
you're
that I
that
was like
you.
stalking them and like,
Ah,
yeah.
and
So
the
she threatened to
okay.
like, she threatened me with a restraining order. I was like, you reached out to me and I accepted the olive branch. Anyways.
Wow. Okay. And so, okay, so that's interesting. We'll come back to it possibly. And the
Yeah.
last automatic thought here is I'm easy to throw away. I'm not sure I bring
Yeah.
value to other people.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go through some of these and try to refine them a bit.
Yeah.
So, like, let's start with the first one. Some of the terrible things these friends said may have been true to some degree, like I'm hypocritical. So, what I'm
Yeah.
wanting to know from you is like, you're kind of you're caving in a bit. You're saying, hey, there's some chance that that's true.
I guess. Yeah.
And so if you were hypocritical, um, in what way? Tell me in what way you were hypocritical.
Well, like maybe it was just that situation. Like, so what happened is a person I thought was a mutual friend of ours who doesn't really have many other friends here, their mom passed away. So I notified the ringleader who had reached out to me and like we had started communicating again and asked
Mhm.
her to pass it on to the group. And then that's when a lot of other things came out. So then I, at this point, was like, I had seen it coming, but also been like, I want to give someone the benefit of the doubt if she's going to try and be nice or if she's going to go back to her old behavior. And so she came at me, and where normally I would have been like, yeah, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I came back full force and pieced apart and broke down exactly what she was saying to me and where it was coming from. And so She reacted extremely negatively and then said like, aha, see, I'm right. Like I always knew it, you were a hypocrite. Like all of your compassion and empathy stuff is an act. Like your understanding for other people, trying to tell other people to be understanding is an act because you can't do that yourself. And my lasting reaction is that like because of my reaction to her that maybe it is true that like I thought I could always try to be understanding and compassionate and kind because that's how I was taught to be, and also how like I found is the easiest way to like for me to have dealt with myself is
Can
like if I
you,
need understanding, I need to give people
yeah,
understanding and space. And
yeah,
I
tell
think
me
just
about this phrase, my compassion and empathy stuff. So this is something I'm getting a sense that this is about a way of being, a body of knowledge, a perspective, a
yeah,
spirituality. What is that? Because there are other people from the outside are identifying
yeah.
this as quite characteristic of you, your compassion and empathy stuff. So, what does that mean in this context?
Like I guess like one of the things they said that I was too being too Hindu. Um and that like and these are other brown people, right? So like they're like I was being
Hmm.
too Hindu, and I was like, I'm not trying, but this is just like a part of me. Like, well, if you can you just like separate the Hindu part out of the pie that you give to everybody? And I'm like, the crust, if I'm the pie, the crust is the Hinduism. It's like very core and fundamental. And like the way that I've been taught is to be compassionate and understanding. You know, like my dad has always been a very supportive person of trans rights, of like LGBTQ rights. Like he's been like, let people live how they need to live and how they want to.
Right.
So like,
So, compassion and empathy
yeah,
rooted in your Hindu beliefs and like
yeah. And
worldview has been very significant for you. But
yeah,
these folks found it to be, how did they find
grading
it?
and they found it grating. They found that I was trying to be too like, they found that I was kind of being like trying to like convert them to my beliefs. And I was like, no. But I was also like, I'm used to being around white people that have absolutely no context for my beliefs. So I'm fully able to to speak very obliquely and very plainly about like what the reasoning and rationale for what I do is, because it's
I
really
see.
sometimes like diametric to how other people are gonna act,
Mm,
right?
okay.
Or
So
their logic. So
that
they,
makes
I think
sense.
it triggered them that like people in their community that are like very hyper Hindu, but like actually like very terrible people. I think I triggered them in
Mm,
that sense.
sure. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot, that's a good analysis. That makes a lot of sense. And that might be something we come to even when we think about our alternative thoughts. But for now, I want to highlight this hypocrisy. So you said my compassion and empathy stuff, my way of being, or the stuff I purport, the stuff I try to live by, is an act because I got very angry with this friend. So in this moment, you couldn't be your ideal self. And
Yeah.
what do you think that says about you? Or what do you worry it
Well, it kind
means
of, I
about
mean,
your faith or your identity?
like it hasn't made me question my like spirituality.
Hmm.
In terms of identity, I kind of wonder because like people always used to turn to me for advice, and I think like this girl is a social work professional, so I think she got very um like territorial about me offering people advice, and so I think it is something along that terms. So she kind of
Mm.
has succeeded that like I don't necessarily feel comfortable giving people advice to say like it's okay, trust yourself, give people the benefit of the doubt, because I don't know if I can feel that anymore, like for this one person, but also for kind of this group of people.
Okay. Uh, so part of this thought is I can't offer endless compassion. Um,
Which I don't think anybody can, right?
yeah, yeah. But I think you had an idea
Maybe
that you
Jesus.
Yeah, but I think you had an idea that you could, or that the compassion would be
Yeah, I did. I thought I
overarching, or
could.
it would
Yeah,
undercut everything, right? So I
honestly, I
can't
did
offer, yeah, so I can't offer endless compassion, even though I
want to.
uh yeah, I want to, but also I thought it was going to get me through everything.
Yeah.
And so your very beliefs are shifting a bit, right? Because you're saying I can't offer endless compassion, even though I thought it was going to get me through everything. And you're realizing that it's like it's a good concept, but it might be maybe over it might have been overly simplified in your mind at some point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if part of your belief system isn't working for you anymore or needs to be modified, I like there's a I think this is where the humiliation comes in. What else have you've suffered something and there's a thought connected to that suffering, and I wonder if it's something like, um they're right, I don't have all the answers, or I'm still working on figuring out how to connect with people, or
Not
is this where the
necessarily.
regret comes in around giving advice?
No,
Go ahead.
it's more like I think it's also combined with the amount of like particularly anti-Indian racism that I've gotten this year. Like I get called the N-word at least once a month. Like that's like not something new, but like in the last 2 months, the anti-Indian racism has like
Hmm.
started to jump since about January. So I think the two of those things combined, particularly because like the dot, I'm not sure if you were raised here in the 90s, but there was
Hmm.
the whole thing about the dot busters in the 90s
Yeah.
in different spots of North America. So
Hmm.
that was a real fear for my parents, was that in Alberta, being like brown kid with a dot on his head is very, very easily picked out. So they would tell
Yeah.
me not to wear it. So I only just started just I put it on in the morning and I just forget about it. I walk out. And then because of that recently, I think I've been getting more, recognized more as like Packy Dot, like all of these other words.
Mm.
And I think combining those two things, I'm starting to shift and say like I don't want to be as open about where the roots of my spirituality are, which I think
Hmm.
is also kind of unfortunate because almost literally every other person in my life except for this group of people has been like happy to like make acquaintance with me, to be like, oh, you're
Yeah.
completely like you weren't raised in Abrahamic thought, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Look, I appreciate that example, right? Because you're talking about how you get targeted for being visible as a racial minority and somebody of faith. And I don't want to encourage you to be less visible,
yeah,
but I think something is happening here, which is not that I need to be less visible to be safe, but actually something about interpersonal connectedness that
yeah.
maybe needs to change, or maybe you're getting feedback that isn't working. And I think that's where
Am I
the
crossing boundaries,
humiliation
do you
come in.
think?
Well, I'm not sure, but we'll uncover it by the end of this, I promise you. So,
Okay.
right now, one of the thoughts is I can't offer endless compassion, even though I thought it was going to get me through everything. And now, so I'm saying, like, if that's true, what's the consequence of that for your social relationships? And so, not I need to be less visible, but in social relationships, is there a new belief like
I'm I've noticed this from, and this is the reason that I'm glad to be speaking with you right now, is because
yeah,
like I'm in the process also of like processing this, and like you getting me here to this point is really helpful, that like
yeah,
people have been saying, they're like, you've changed a little bit, like you're slightly more combative, you're slightly more like people, I guess like that I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder at times. So
mm,
like I try to be compassionate and kind and everything, but like there can be kind of something said that like triggers me to like flip the switch, and like people that have known me for many years find that somewhat inauthentic.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I'm like
uh,
confused right now, right? Because I'm like,
yes.
okay, I thought I knew who I was, who my authentic self was, and I thought I was presenting that.
Yeah. I think it's more um, people can see the chip on my shoulder. Um, and
And I can be somewhat combative.
yeah, or they think I'm somewhat combative. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna pause that there. That train of thought or that cluster of thoughts is really like I think we've done some good work there. Um, but I want to
Can I get this afterwards, by the way, too?
oh, of course, absolutely. Um, I want to go down to this one where this thought that you said no one has bothered to reach out to me in the last 10 months. And what meaning have you drawn from that? What do you think that says about people in the world or this group of friends or you? What does it say to you if people can't reach out, didn't reach out to you in the last 10 months?
I think it's I think COVID specifically has like created a lot of like internal turmoil for people. So I can't like necessarily say that like this is the be all end all, but like I think one of the things I realized about people is that in general, like while it's important to look out for yourself and your boundaries, people exist in a society and like without creating healthy relationships and connections, like we kind of like fall into this cycle of like negative thought. At least is what like has come out. So this like no one's bothered to reach out to me in the last 10 months is like it's not entirely true. So the ringleader is the one that she messaged me on World Coming Out Day. And then a few months
Mm,
later and during Christmas, I messaged her back. And then we had a sort of cordial relationship back and forth. Um, the other guy who I completely wanted to ignore,
mhm.
um, he uh like just stopped responding to my messages, even like even if I was just saying like, hey, how's it going, wanted to check in, or I saw this news story that's interesting, trying to build a relationship. And
Mhm.
then two, the other people both reached out to me once each, and then I got a little bit salty, which is, I'm sorry, I'm human. You haven't talked to me in 4 months, I'm gonna get a little bit salty. And they both were just like, ugh, like you haven't changed. And then both of them just
Okay.
stopped talking to me as well.
Yeah. And when you were salty, so each of these people, a few of them reached out, and your anger was you haven't reached out to me in 4 months. And what did that say to you about the quality of the relationship or about
Well, like the
you as a
response,
person? Yeah, go ahead.
maybe I am like petty, right? Like the response from two of the people was like I was just like, yeah, I'm just like kind of lonely. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just like kind of lonely or whatever. But like, and then they were like, ugh, like you're being dramatic again. Like was their type of like emotional response I got.
Ah,
So then
okay.
at the same time, that raised a little bit of anger in me because I kind of was like, maybe I should just pretend to forget it. And if they're trying to be nice to me, maybe I should just try and be nice to them too. And so I was
Mm,
wondering, I was like, maybe I'm petty, but then I also kind of I've had this thing since I came out that
tell me.
I don't want to lie. Like if we're trying to build a relationship, if we are trying to build a relationship, I'm
Hmm.
always trying to say things in the kindest and like least impactful way.
Yes.
Um, but I'm also not going to hide my feelings just because I don't think that's deserved for you or for me. I spent 25 years before coming out hiding my feelings, hiding myself, and that did so much damage. I can't do it anymore, you know? I'm 33 now. It's been 8 years since I'm out. This other than this last year, I've been happy as myself. Being
So,
honest, being artfully truthful.
yeah, I just want to clarify this point. So, you're thinking that, when you're in contact with these friends, it's always important for you to be honest, but that honesty pushes them away or gets in the way?
Yeah, I think because like, and that's the thing is like, I have like a completely different perspective from people. And this
Yes.
is not me being arrogant. This is literally something that's taken me years to realize and tons of turmoil to
Hmm.
overcome through. And so if they would say something, I would say, well, I actually kind of don't agree with that. and it would be me being combative or me being negative or me putting them down. And I've kept on trying to reconfigure how I could say those things or how I could offer a different perspective without being
Yes.
combative. If someone's asking for advice, if they're not asking for advice, I don't offer advice. But if someone's like asking me a question about what I think about something, I'm not just going to blindly say I agree with it.
No, sure. Well, if they're asking, there isn't anything to agree with, right? You would
Or if it's a
agree or disagree.
conversation too, right?
Right, right. Okay. So okay, so there's this idea, this thought that you had that no one has bothered to reach out to me in the last 10 months. And one of the thoughts that crosses your mind, you know what? Maybe I am petty because you were salty when they reached out at month 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're thinking like, okay, what does this say about the nature of my relationships with people? And the follow-up thought is I want to be honest, but that maybe gets in the way sometimes. And I'm connecting this to another thought you had said, and tell me if it fits in here. People won't understand my experience or my perspective because it's too heavy. Is that accurate?
I definitely feel like that is accurate.
Okay, so when I like that you use the word too heavy, can you
Yeah.
tell me what's too heavy about it for other people?
Um, just the glib reality of the Fijian experience, right? Like, my particular family, so if we're going to talk about it,
Tell
so
me, yes.
left India in the 1890s on my dad's side, came over and were indentured laborers for sugar slaves for 5 generations. The first 2 generations were basically like whipped in the fields all the time to clear
Hmm.
the land, right? At this time as well, the natives weren't subjugated, so the Indians were the intermediary between the natives and the white people, and the natives were also cannibals until 1964. Um,
Mm.
and then the white people were the overseers, but because they had the guns and the weapons, like the Indians were like in the majority, so we dominated the culture for both groups in language and religion. But we were kind of like always aggressed upon by like Mormon missionaries, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, everyone, right? And then
Mhm.
moving to Canada, so like my great grandmother overcame all that. There was a scheme in the colonies to like take all the gold out when they were decolonizing. So they came in and said, um, okay, put all your gold jewelry up. Here's a very like usurious rate. And like if you can't pay it back, then we'll take the gold. But she ended up paying it
Mm.
back within 6 months and became a money lender, paid for my grandfather's bookstore, which gained us access and privilege. And then my dad moved to Canada. We thought it was over, but then being part of the first wave of Indians, the Fijians were part of the first wave of Indians in the 1960s and 70s, especially the Caribbeans as well. Canada was super racist before 1978.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
like a lot of that racism gets like really like built in and pushed down. And it was only the rise of George Floyd that started to bring those stories up from my mom and my dad that they didn't tell each other. So I was getting all of
Okay.
this. So then on top of that, you add in that like the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s for Fijians because we were relegated to that same kind of like ghettoization that impacted Indo-Caribbeans and Black Caribbeans as well, and Black people, Somali people,
Yeah.
Arab immigrants. There was a lot of gang violence. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like there's a lot of gang violence in Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary between like including Fijian gangs, including the native gangs, Vietnamese. So like a lot of these people just like they're like and then so when I would mention that like well this is what India people say about Fijian people, they'd be like like we don't actually think about Fijians. And it's like that is such a hurtful statement to me to say. It's like it's almost like while it's like Indians themselves want to see the group as like a minority in this country, India people versus the rest of the diaspora are
Of
exactly the same
course.
way that American white people are to the rest of the white diaspora.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, like dictating culture and like evidence and weight and like validity, right? So it's just like when I try to explain these things to them or these contexts, they're like, we just have no idea to understand. And that ringleader
Yeah.
girl would always try and draw it back to her parallels, but at the same time, it's like they weren't necessarily the same. There's some overlap because like being another South Asian group from the West as well, like there was some overlap, but again, not really, right? And like,
Yes.
and then especially me being like the only brown kid for like 10 years of schooling, right? And like my elementary school was between two Baptist churches. So like every fucking
Mhm.
Sunday there was missionaries to our doorway. Moved to a new area of town, and that's when they started releasing census data to churches. So then literally
Yeah.
every Sunday for 7, 8 years again, it was like it's almost like this violence that's like
Yeah.
weighed upon you. You're just like continuously asked, like, are you sure you want to be Hindu? Are you sure you don't want to be part of the majority? Are you sure you don't, like, sorry, that was a
No,
moment.
no problem. All right. Take a moment. Take a deep breath.
Sorry, that was a moment. Yeah.
Take an actual deep breath with me, please. Yes. Okay.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, 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 no. You don't have to apologize. This historical context is very, very important, right? It is incredibly important and valuable that you understand yourself as a person that's located in a historical context with a history of persecution and marginalization. And it seems to me like there's a kind of activation that happens for you when that history isn't seen or recognized, or it's actively
Yeah.
dismissed in the present by people who you understand to have quite a bit of representational power. Um, and they're not willing to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And it's, when you talk about a friend who is part of a dominant group trying to make a rough parallel to what you're experiencing, that I imagine is quite infuriating to you.
A little bit. And
Yeah,
could I add something? Is that
sure, go
like,
ahead.
I think what you're saying is exactly correct. And I think like adding into that is that I don't normally share these heavy details
Mhm.
with a lot of people. So I think what was kind of like where that sadness, I think, and the
Mm,
humiliation and the animosity also all stemmed from
mhm,
was that I thought I could trust these people to like see not just the happy comedian side, but to understand what's behind that. And what I think where the humiliation comes from is that like I feel like sharing my true self, I was rejected for sharing everything about me, which makes me question whether even like in a relationship, a long-term relationship, like I have value as that like person. Yeah.
mm. So I thought these people would be able to see the side of me that's a comedian, which, by the way, I don't think we said in your bio, but hi, you're a comedian,
Yes.
but also someone with real pain. Yeah. And what
Yeah.
was the second thing you said after that? The most recent thing.
Um, oh, I don't remember. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. There's something about this brown group of friends that were interesting for you to be part of, right?
Yeah.
You talk
They were an
about
ideal.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And tell me about why it was important for you to be around those people and what it's meant for you or what you've been kind of thinking when that didn't work out.
Um, like what it meant to be a part of them. And like it's funny to say that too, because it originally started as me and one of the guys, the one that everybody hinges around that thought I called him privileged. Me and him were really close friends. And then a
Mm,
few other people kept on joining the group and the group kept on expanding. So I think part of the humiliation was being like I was part of this original group of people. Like I was the one that helped build this group of people as well. Um, so like that's where the humiliation comes from, I think.
I helped build this group of people.
And they just like
Um,
kind of threw me away.
yes, right. So, and now I'm not part of it. And that
Yeah.
connects to this thought, like I don't bring value to
Oh,
people, I'm easy to throw
yeah.
away.
Well, it was
Um,
kind of like this group of
Tell
people
me.
that like so like being a Hindu brown kid in Edmonton in the 90s and early 2000s, you're an anomaly, right? Like you don't eat beef and that's really funny. So people like
Mm,
my own close friends growing up would try and like trick me into eating beef or pork. And I don't eat either. Familially, we don't for generations. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be a joke for them. And I would always have to just like, haha, laugh it off. And like, if I got mad, it was me being stupid. If I was being effeminate,
Yes.
it was me not matching to the straight ideal. If I was being too brown, it was me not fitting into the white square box, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
so if it came when it finally came that like I had been dreaming and hoping for this group of like brown gay friends for the longest time because I thought it would at least give an easy access to people just to understand my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a learning lesson for me to realize that like no, we still all have different perspectives, but I thought that it would be a group of people that could appreciate all of those facets about me, that I could also appreciate all of those facets about
Mm.
them. And I think maybe that's where a sense of like loss comes in because now I question whether, well, it's made me take a hard look at like the rest of my relationships and say, okay, you know what, like an ideal is never correct. Like desire breeds, what is it? Desire breeds expectation and expectation leads to sadness, right? So,
So hold on.
or
Sorry, one
disappointment.
second. I got to pause you there. You were longing to be seen and understood by your own people or by this
Yeah.
group of people, right? And in a
Yeah.
diasporic community,
Yeah.
you're all
Yeah.
like A people, right?
A people. Yeah, exactly.
What did you hope your life would be like when you met this group of people? Or what would you be able to do once you had met them?
To be honest, like nothing different than just to be myself and feel like a sense of inclusion, like a natural inclusion, not always feeling like I'm the extended body or the third wheel, or if I'm the one that gets the late invitation, I shouldn't feel bad about it. Or because like I can't necessarily be a part of like a wedding group or a wedding pictures, even though I know everybody for the same amount of time that's in the wedding party,
Mm,
because the optics doesn't work. And you always kind of come
yes.
back to this like,
Yeah.
oh, I just thought there would be one group of people that wouldn't care about any of these other kind of like extenuating factors that make me a takeout person with other people. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
I'm
we're
going to
getting
slow
like
you.
deep.
We're
Am I like
getting
talking too
deep.
much?
No, you're not talking too much at all. But I'm thinking about when you long to be seen and understood by your own people. Um, maybe one of the deep-seated or subconscious thoughts that drives the sadness, the anger, the flight response, all of these other feelings is that you actually, as a result of this experience, are now feeling like I may never find my tribe.
100%. That's like 100%
Yeah.
accurate for sure. 100%.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's keep this in mind. I'm going to put this in bold. I may never find my tribe. The other thought I'm going to put in bold is people
Yeah. 100% that
people
one.
people can see the chip on my shoulder
Yeah.
and think I'm
Yeah.
somewhat combative. I'm going to erase this one about the ringleader because
Yeah.
we need to focus on your thoughts right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the last thing I wanna ask you a bit more about is this idea that I cause them anxiety when I
Oh, that
talk to
was
them,
that was
right?
told to me specifically.
That was told to you, but do you
Yeah.
think that's true?
On a level I do.
Okay. So now I know historically, socially, and politically why that might be, right? You come with a
Yeah.
lot of knowledge.
And
You're
baggage.
well, that's not possible. Like we all have
It's true
baggage,
though.
but
Yeah.
well, here's what I'm wondering, right? Um, is there another thought connected to that? So if you agree that I cause people anxiety when I talk to them, is there a thought about like I'm not sure how to socialize, or I worry I don't know how to connect with people, or I worry that I'll be rejected for my baggage, or something like that? I'm wondering
Well,
if there's a connected thought.
100%, but it's like there's like this group of people, and I think COVID like fossilizing us and not like I think if we all had multiple groups of friends to hang out with, this situation wouldn't have taken place. But
Okay.
I think like pre this, I was the type of person that like, again, I told you all of my vectors, right? So like growing up
Yes.
from a very early on age, like I learned that it's my fault. So like I have to try and make people comfortable, because if I'm getting bullied, that's my fault for opening it up to this thing. If, you know, so like I would
Mm,
always have to try and find vectors of how to make people comfortable. And that's why I'm so good at my job, is because I know how to make people comfortable. I can read in on discrete behaviors, and like I can understand context and, you know, intensity. And a lot of people that don't understand it want to dismiss it. So then what happened during this whole like kind of 6 months of like emotional destabilization was like I kept on being told how I'm causing people anxiety and how I'm being the issue and how I'm being the problem. And every single time I would try to like retrajectorize and like find a way to not be the problem, it would build up
hmm
more and more angst inside me. And then um lead to me not reacting correctly. And I think one of like one of the hardest ones was like that it was like the anniversary of like my rape, of my sexual assault, and it had been 16 years since it had happened. So it was kind of like
hmm
I've now been alive for more time than I was
Yes.
before. So
Yes.
then they definitely didn't have any way to like contextualize it, and almost just completely like ignored it and glossed over it. And the funny thing is,
hmm
if I talked to any of them about it, the response would be like, I don't remember you saying that. And so that makes me wonder, like, okay, again, like, am I that throwaway, forgettable person? And like, what am I doing to cause people anxiety that I can fix about myself? And like, is this one group of people a common reaction
hmm
across the board?
So I'm glad you asked that. Tell me, is that a common reaction you're getting from other folks in your life?
Honestly, no, but like it's like since the destabilization, like I'm just never sure of myself. And like I do feel like I come off a little bit aggressive sometimes.
Okay. So if I were to connect this to the thought, I cause them anxiety when I talk to them, but I don't want to make people comfortable all the time. Like you don't want to make
I'm
that your
tired of
job.
it. I'm kind
Yeah,
of tired
no,
of it.
that's fair.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking a connected thought is like almost like I don't know how to be with people, or I'm not sure how to be with people, or I'm not sure how to
Anymore.
stay connected. Okay. Um,
Yeah. Honestly, like I think all of those statements is like somewhat true and valid. And I think COVID kind of has to do with that too, because I couldn't find any new friends anyways, because everybody had their close social groups.
and what
So
does it say
then
about you when you can't find new friends?
I don't know, and I'm trying to like figure that out. Like,
Yeah.
because like when
I,
I'm one-on-one with people, when I'm in a social setting, it's very easy for me to meet and talk with people, but maybe I just don't give off this like right digital persona that's like this is a person we
uh-huh.
want to talk to, you know, or I want
Okay.
to actually like have around.
Okay. So we took a lot of your automatic thoughts and I grouped them in a particular way
Yeah,
to try to distill them. So anything that comes up that looks kind of like factual,
I
we
think
want
it's
to
all pretty factual.
okay. So a lot of the things that are factual, we actually want to distill it to something that you make meaning of. So if you say, people don't like me, like that might be factual. I don't know. And then I would want to say, um, okay, like, and if people don't like you, what does that mean? And you would say, oh, I'm not likable. I would say, okay, now we've gone from something factual to a belief, right? And all we did was shift a couple of words from
Yeah,
people don't like me to I'm not
yeah,
likable.
yeah.
So
Okay, I see.
so what I'm looking for is something that we've highlighted here under automatic thoughts that
Yeah,
really stands out to you. Now we're thinking just one automatic thought, one that is what we're later going to call your hot thought because it's the most salient, the most prominent, and drives a lot of the feelings you were experiencing in the second column. So Let's repeat the situation. You're running into estranged friends, right? You're running into them after 10 months. This is a group of about 6 people, and you immediately avoided them as much as possible by walking around them.
Not a great moment for me.
Not a great moment. You felt humiliated, flight, anger, fear, anxiety, weakness, sadness, swabimanta, animosity, regret, embarrassed, self-conscious. What did you do? Your behavior: avoided the group by walking around them, looked the other way when I locked eyes with one of them, remembering the original conflict. It started replaying in your mind. There's a kind of rumination where you were being called a hypocrite and arrogant, dramatic, and self-centered. So what are the thoughts that come up for you? Well, some of the terrible things these friends may have said might be true to some degree. Your hypocrisy was, you talk about being compassionate and empathetic, but that was hard to live out when you got really angry with your friend. What did you realize? What does that mean if you can't live by those words? Well, I can't offer endless compassion, even though I thought it was going to get me through everything. So there's something about here about your worldview needing adjustment, right? And then you say, well, maybe people can see the chip on my shoulder and think I'm somewhat combative. So that might, if that's true, my follow-up question would actually be, what does that mean for your future friendships? Or what's the long-term consequence of that, right? Like, I'll be alone, or I won't find my tribe, or something like that. Now, actually, let's answer that before we go further. If people can see the chip on your shoulder and they think you're somewhat combative, what is the long-term consequence of that in terms of friendships or connections?
Yeah, I just don't think I'll be able to build significant relationships the way that I want to, whether it's friendship or in otherwise.
Okay, won't be able to build significant relationships. I'm going to bold that one because that sounds like we've gotten to the belief there. The next cluster of thoughts: no one has bothered to reach out to me in the last 10 months, right? That's factual, but it is a thought you're having. What does it mean, or what does it say? Maybe I'm petty, or I want to be honest, but that gets in the way. And sometimes people won't understand my experience or perspective because it's too heavy. And I thought these people would be able to see the side of me that's a comedian, but also somebody with real pain. And so that it also is like maybe factual, like this is what I did think. So we'd have to go back and say, okay, if that's true, that these people are not able to see the different sides of you, what does that say about you? Or what's the consequence of that? What would you say?
I think a consequence is that I'm always going to be second guessing myself.
Yeah. In what way will you be second guessing yourself?
Well, I think I'm always just going to be second guessing, like, whether something I said was because I was trying to be empathetic or whether I was being petty, and also whether, I don't know.
You're second guessing your motivation.
Like, I'm just going to be, I guess, like, unsure of, like, maybe whether what I said was right, to, like, did I hurt a person by saying that accidentally, or because my goal is always to try and, like, decrease pain, and, like, I wonder if now that's shifted.
Okay, so I will always be second guessing my motivations, beliefs, and impact on others. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I were to shift that a bit, I'll always be second guessing. Would it be accurate to also say, I'm not sure, I can't, would you say, like, I can't trust my motivations, beliefs, and impact on others? Or should we leave it as I'll always be second guessing?
No, I think I'll always be second guessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now the last couple of thought clusters here. I helped build this group of people, and now I'm not part of it. This means I'm easy to throw away. I'm not sure I bring value to other people. I long to be seen and understood by my own people. Consequence or long-term impact: I may never fit in or find my tribe. There's also I'm going to bold this one too, because it's pretty significant. I'm easy to throw away. I'm not sure I bring value to other people. And then you said, I cause them anxiety when I talk to them, but I don't want to make people comfortable all the time, right? So the thought that comes out of that has to do with you is that maybe, I don't know how to be with and stay connected to people.
Yeah. And I think that ties to the second guessing as well, to be honest.
Okay. So we've
Yeah.
got a lot of bolded thoughts here. I want
I
you to
think
look
three of
at
them tie
these.
together.
Okay. Tell me. Okay. Okay. So you're not going to want to pick just one. I should have guessed.
No. We can pick one. We can pick one
No, no,
fully.
no.
We can pick one
See,
fully. Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
tell me which three really stand out to you. Three is no problem. So,
Well, I was gonna say I won't be able to build significant relationships, the second guessing myself, and the never fit in, find my tribe, or easy to throw away. Like,
okay. And those are related. So
yeah,
I'm
I think
happy
those are
to
all
come.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to combine those. So I'm going to say here, I'm just going to put these into another column for a
I think
second.
actually it would be completely just like I won't be able to build significant relationships is like the main
It's the main one.
worry belief that like everything I think is hinging on.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I'm glad you were able to do that. It saves me, it just saves me some
Yeah,
administrative
totally,
work. Okay.
totally.
So I won't be able to build significant relationships. Now, how are you feeling just coming out of that column of the automatic thoughts? Because you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of digging to get there.
I actually like feel so much better after that column.
Okay.
Like,
There's a lot to
yeah,
sort
like
through, huh?
it's nice just to like have it grouped together. Like
Yeah.
it's not just like streams of thought that kind of interact and it's like, oh, but this, but that. But like when it's like grouped together like that,
Yeah.
I
I
can
mean,
like understand it.
there's a lot to sort through when it comes to your identity, your history, and just even your intelligence, right? Your mind pulls you in many different directions. You've also talked about, and this wasn't lost on me, you talked about an experience of sexual assault. I didn't go into it because it wasn't super relevant for that particular thought, but I can also appreciate how um, past traumas connect to our anxiety and shame and discomfort or uncertainty around people. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
In this particular thought record, we're not going to be drawing that out, but I want to acknowledge that that's there.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So the hot thought that we're working with is I won't be able to build significant relationships. Now that comes from somewhere, right? It's not just a thought, it's almost a belief you have after your estrangement from these friends. What's some evidence that supports that you won't be able to build significant relationships?
Uh like I think I kind of understand where it stems from, but
Ooh,
I think like most recently like type of things I think I would think is that like maybe I cut too quick from relationships, but then as
okay.
well,
Have you done
yeah,
that? Have you cut people off too quickly?
I don't think so, but
Okay.
it is easy
So
for me to like make a change. And I think that's where it's like, yeah,
what does that mean? It's easy for me to make a change.
like it's been really common for people to break up with, it's actually more common for people to break up with me when like with gay relationships, a lot of it is kind of built on like an ideal image, I guess. So I match a lot of ideal images, like tick boxes for people. But then when they actually see the depth and they're like, oh, like you like to like paint your nails or like you like to do drag, like I'm not down with feminine aesthetic. Or you're actually like more religious than I thought you were, things like that. So
Mhm.
then those people more often than not tend to cut with me. So then I think maybe as like a self-preservation module, I try to like give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like I might not make an overt like effort for people. I actually just realized that like maybe sometimes I don't make enough effort with some people.
Okay. Okay. Well, we've got a couple of things. So, um, So you've had many experiences of being broken up with, right? So that does support the idea that maybe you won't build and, build significant relationships. People have also found things they don't like about you, like religion, drag, being femme. Um, are there other experiences you've had that are evidence that you won't build significant relationships? I mean, I think the main one is you thought you had found your tribe and they let you down.
Yeah. Yeah. Fully. Yeah.
Um, or
There is like
they
something tied to like my early youth with the sexual assault, but I don't think that that's necessarily relevant to this discussion unless you want me to bring it up. But I
um
think these are like, yeah.
if you think it's relevant, I'm happy to hear it. I think, I mean, everything is part of the puzzle, right? Do
Yeah.
you think the experience of the assault, so perhaps um
So prior to the
the
assault,
Mhm.
I was like, this was right around the start of like MSN, like Hotmail chat groups. So
Okay.
I was 13 and I was groomed like online by this older guy, and he kind of blackmailed me emotionally and with like other things. But then when I was like starting to like I was developing a little bit of like a Munchausen's, I guess, like identifying with him. And then when I was
Mm,
starting to like pull away, he completely like you know, cut me off everything, obviously, I guess for his own preservation. But deleted me from everything. So then there was like this weird sense of abandonment.
okay. How old were you at the time?
I was 13. I think he was 28.
13. Um, so an older guy. Um, uh, he didn't respect your boundaries when you were pulling away. Is that right?
100%, 100%. And I'm okay to talk about all this because I've like dealt with many years of like therapy to deal through this. So I think it might be helpful as well for other people that have gone through it.
Sure.
But yeah,
Um,
of abandonment. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, an experience
yeah.
of abandonment.
So
Yeah.
at age 13, older guy didn't respect my boundaries and created an experience of abandonment. So when we talk about boundaries, right, in the context of relationships, it's telling people, look, when you said that, it didn't work for me or made me feel bad. Or we say, hey, you know, we have this dynamic. We're always, saying mean things to each other. Let's stop doing that. Like it's
Let's
not
stop
feeling
doing this.
good.
Yeah.
And in the context of something romantic or sexual, I mean, this guy had quite a bit of power. He's quite a bit older than you. And you're quite vulnerable, I'm thinking, at this age, right, of 13. And you said Munchausen. You started to talk about how you identified with him. You felt very connected
Yeah.
to him. And
Well,
then
yeah.
there was a clear cut.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything?
No, that's
No?
good. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty
Okay.
much exactly what you were gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. So the message you walk away with is
I'm not
if I,
worthy.
yes, if exactly. So if I tell you uh, I don't like one thing, that means I lose everything, right? That's kind of the
Yeah, I
subtext.
guess.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah.
so this is
Oh
quite
wow,
a bit.
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. Um, if I
Like I don't need to be a doormat and just be like I'm okay with everything.
no, of course not. So this is kind of the subtext that you walked away with. Now I'm curious to know, let's move over to the next column of evidence that does not support the hot thought. So here you're sharing evidence from your life, recent past, and even earlier than that, where you were able to build significant relationships.
Hmm. Um,
I'm
so
going to
my
start
like
you off actually.
sure.
This group, because I want to ask this group of friends who you were with,
Yeah.
how long were you guys friends?
So me and S were friends. Like I think I was one of the first few people that he like first few South Asian people that he met in Toronto. We
Okay.
met on like Pride Day. Uh And so we were friends for at least, so say June, July, August, September, October, November-ish is when this group's. So we were friends for about 6 months before the group started forming. And then it was around like March. So another, sorry. So another like 5 months. So I had known S for about 11 months at that point, and then add another so another 7 months to that. So about 18 months, about a year and a half, really, that like I was. So with the core group, it was maybe S for about 8 months, I guess, 7 months, and with
Yeah.
S, it was for about a year and a half. Yeah.
Okay. So you maintained a significant connection to this group, and I get that it started with a few people, then branched out. And this was a group of South Asian folks for a year and a half, 1.5 years. Okay, so I just wanted to put that in there because I think that there is something about what you're able to do, and then there's something else about what's difficult. Now, what were you going to say? Evidence that supports the idea that you're able to build significant relationships.
Well, I was gonna say that my the people that I've actually known for 10 years plus have commented that our relationships have gotten deeper during COVID because I've actually like felt comfortable to reach out to them. Maybe there's just some way that there's something to do with like that knowing where I came from, they might understand a bit more, or like it's also just kind of easier to talk about things as adults with someone that you saw at a very young hard times and stuff like that.
Okay, so these are friends that you're not super in touch with all the time,
Yeah,
but you've
and
gotten
now we've
closer
gotten
to them during the
closer.
pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And like my
And
best friend of 20 years, we've actually like we have gotten so close now that like she lives in Vancouver and I've lived in Toronto. It's been about 5 years since we've lived in the same city, and we've talked every day, I think, for the last 7 months. Like we talk every
wow.
day for like 2 hours.
Okay. So you've given me two very rich columns of evidence
Yeah.
for why building significant relationships might be difficult for you moving forward, but also lots of evidence that shows that you're able to maintain relationships. We're talking 20 years, 10 years, and then when it got to this more recent group, a year and a half. Now, what is a good alternative thought or a more balanced thought to tell yourself when you think about the loss you experienced with this particular group of South Asian folks? I imagine a lot of them were queer.
Yeah, except for a few of the girls, yes.
Okay, just about everybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna, because that was like your tribe, right?
Yeah.
Or the ideal tribe or idealized tribe. Now, what is an alternative or balance thought you can tell yourself instead of I won't be able to build significant relationships? What's something else that's actually accurate? So not like I'm not looking for an affirmation like people I don't know, something like I'm a great person and people who don't like me can fuck off. Like
That's
that's
not,
not gonna
yeah.
be
Yeah.
helpful because you're
Yeah.
like it doesn't speak to your sadness. It just makes you more
Yeah.
self-righteous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's
exactly.
not gonna be helpful. So let's think about what alternative thoughts could be.
Well, I don't know, like, what do you think? Do you think it has to do with me understanding people and maybe understanding boundaries better? Or,
Here's what I think. You've had a best friend for 20 years. You've had other friends for 10 plus years. This other group was a group you idealized, I think, and it got intense quickly and crashed.
okay.
So I think the
Yeah.
thought has to be around like I need to tread more carefully around idealized relationships. I'll write that down. That might not resonate with you, but I'll write it down for now.
Well, like something that you kind of like, it's not necessarily exactly that, but it might be in the same window
Mhm.
is kind of
Yeah.
like a question I kind of have is like, how can I not idealize relationships. Because I think, like
Yes.
I said, like for me, like ideal is desire breeds expectation breeds sadness. That's generally how like my life has played out.
Mhm.
So like I kind of want to approach a relationship with not creating this like
Can you
figment.
can you say that whole saying to me again?
Sorry.
That
Oh,
saying that you
ideal is desire and desire breeds expectation. So
okay, hold on.
expectation usually
Ideal
breeds
is
sadness.
desire. Give me one sec. I need to write the whole thing
Yeah,
down.
no worries.
Ideal is desire.
Yeah. Desire
Desire
breeds expectation.
breeds expectation. Yeah.
And from expectation is like sadness or disappointment. Because like you're never going to get exactly what you want, right? I mean, it's
Okay.
rare. It happens for people. Sometimes it happens for people, right? But like you have to make compromises with yourself.
Yeah. Now, so ideal is desire, desire breeds expectation, and from expectation is sadness and disappointment. Now, I like that. That could even be your alternative thought. It could be a good reminder. It is a bit platitude-y.
A little bit. Yeah, yeah. It's
Like
kind of like
it's
an
like,
aphorism. Like,
yeah, like it could, like frankly, it could have
yeah.
come from a book that was sold at Urban Outfitters. And so I want us to think about this because this has been an important mantra for you, but I want us to think about reshaping it so it's specific to relationships, you know?
Yeah.
Um, now,
Should it be something like, because like I think the two main things is like I don't want to idealize any relationship. I don't want to idealize anything. I just want to like live in an approach to reality.
okay,
Maybe that also
yeah.
sounds like too platitudey. I full of
No,
these
no, no,
platitudes
that's okay. That's
aphorisms.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. The platitudes are like they can be good for guiding us in really difficult times and even times of despair. But my worry is that living by these kinds of things, like you get a platitude that's not rooted in your own lived experience, but it's just been a helpful guide. And then you might try to offer it to somebody else. And that's where you get a miss
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
group of friends, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's something here about the words I live by are open to, are not fixed. They're open to being changed when I'm meeting other people.
Could it be like or I need to be agile, understanding people and my relationships to them?
I need to be agile in
Is
understanding.
is that make sense?
It does.
Like, or like understanding my relationships like on in context with people quicker.
Tell me more about what does that mean?
Well, I think like maybe I need to um just be aware that there are going to be situations where like how I might approach it is not necessarily the most comfortable.
So how I approach issues,
Yeah.
situations, topics.
Is not right for everybody, really. How
Yeah.
I approach something is not right for everybody. Oh, and that's what I try to say, but I think it's
And
better kept as like a statement coming
so
across.
be honest with me here. Do you sometimes impose that on people?
Never. So like I learned really early on, like I had a friend's dad call me out. They said like I would say you should try this or you should do this. So and they said never should on someone's head because you're shitting on them. So I like try and make a very big intent to like not use the word should, but like be like,
Yes.
oh, like I've tried such and such, or like one option could be, but
And
maybe even that statement is not correct for people.
mm,
Like some
so
people might not want to hear it.
I'm curious to know if some of the missteps in these relationships have been uh, people perceiving that you're giving them a lot of advice.
I think honestly, I think that's where like a big issue comes from. I
Okay,
think,
so
yeah,
when I think about an alternative statement, right? So instead of saying I won't be able to build significant relationships, it might be that um, I'm going to try to modify it. So
Yeah.
I can build relationships if I remember that how I approach issues, situations, and topics is not right for everyone. And
Not
my
everyone needs it.
advice isn't always helpful.
Yes, I think perfect. Yeah, no, honestly, like
Okay.
it's been kind of I've been circling around how to like to be
And
honest, like yeah.
and I'm going back to this what we call the platitude, and I'm sorry if that was
Yeah.
dismissive, but
Oh no,
ideal
no,
is
no, no. I love platitudes and aphorisms. Like I'm all
oh, you
about
love
these.
that.
Like,
Okay. And I'll be on, and they drive me nuts because people will say them.
I
I'm like,
get
I don't
totally,
get
I
it. That
get it.
doesn't mean anything. So
I totally get
ideal
it.
is desire, desire breeds expectation. So we've dealt with that.
Yeah,
Now I want to talk about sadness and disappointment.
yeah.
So just as I'm going to say just as people um, will disappoint me.
I can disappoint others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does that get repaired?
Well, to have like a recognition, right?
Yes.
Like
And
I need to
so,
recognize. But what happens when you kind of like, and this is part of where I've been having a sticking point in dealing and overcoming is that like I feel that I need some, maybe not even contrition or some, but I just need some recognition, and overcoming that emotional hurdle is like harder by not being given that recognition
okay.
of my feelings.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. So
I was wondering what you think about that. Sorry.
give me one sec here.
Yeah.
So just as people will disappoint me, I can disappoint others. What I'm hearing you say is mending ruptures for you means uh,
I need to be accountable.
me
Yeah.
being accountable,
Yeah.
and another part of that is seeking explicit recognition from my experience. That seems to be quite important for
Yeah.
you,
How
right?
come you put me instead of I? Is there like a reason, or is it just like
Oh, mending ruptures means
no, no, I just mean like is there like any like psychological reason behind it or
oh,
like the
girl,
statement?
no, no, girl. We're an hour and 35 minutes
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
and my writing, like, I just,
Don't
I'm
worry, don't
just,
worry, don't worry. We're almost there. We're almost there.
no,
We're
no,
almost
no.
there.
And I'm
You've
not complaining about it.
no,
I
no,
think I'm
yeah.
just like the language is slipping away from me a bit.
Totally,
That's all.
totally. No, it
Okay.
looks good. Look, yeah, it's fine, totally.
Okay. Alternative thoughts. I need to tread more slowly when
I like
I
that statement actually. Like, yeah,
yeah, when I have idealized people
and
or
friendships. Yeah.
friendships. I can build relationships if I remember that how I approach issues, situations, and topics is not right for everyone, and my advice isn't always helpful. The last one, just as people will disappoint me, I can disappoint others.
Yeah.
Um, Mending ruptures means me being accountable and seeking explicit recognition from my experience. Let's make that a separate thought. Okay, so we've got these
Yeah.
4 thoughts,
I
right?
like all of those.
You like all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to really think about these and tell me which one really stands out to you. One that you think is most helpful, that isn't necessarily platitude, but is actually one that you have the most belief in. You say, like, I read this thought and I really believe it's true. I really believe it's helpful, or I
I keep
believe it
going
really
to
applies to me. Tell
I
me.
keep going to just as people will disappoint me, I can disappoint others. I don't know
Okay.
why. I just like feel like the most drawn to that. It's either that
That
or I need to tread more slowly when I have idealized people or friendships.
okay. Um,
But I think that just as people disappoint me, I can disappoint others. That's
oh,
like feels
okay.
true.
Okay, so you know what? I think what we're going to do is go with that. So that I'm highlighting that as your alternative thought. The other ones play a role because it's part of a web. Like we don't, like our thoughts are webbed, they're not singular. But that's the most prominent one that you're selecting. I want to go back to the feelings list we came up with and really think about our present feelings. So think about the situation again. You run into your strange friends and you walk around them. A lot of thoughts come up for you, right? The main one that you're thinking is I won't be able to build significant relationships. It's not at the forefront of your mind, but it is what's driving. It's like this subconscious thought that's driving a lot of the feelings. A good alternative to that is just as people will disappoint me, I can disappoint others. When you think about that, how do you rate your the extent to which you feel humiliated with the new thought in mind?
Maybe like a 5.
Your sense of flight?
I think it's still pretty high. I'd probably still feel about like a 7.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no pressure to have these numbers go in either direction. It's just an experiment.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
is your
I'm just
when you
thinking about like, given everything you said, like what would I feel in that situation, like
yeah,
with this there?
no, I get it. I would want to
Yeah.
run the hell away from there too. I totally get it. Where is your anger at?
I think a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here,
I'd say, yeah, a 3 again, I think.
anxiety,
Maybe like a 4, a little bit more than fear, but not like that much.
feeling of weakness. It's not
Yeah,
physical
maybe like a
weakness, but
4. Yeah,
okay.
like a physical weakness, like a 4, yeah.
Is it a physical weakness or like I'm a weak person?
It's kind of like a both feeling.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
it's like one of those like I feel like a weak person, but I also just feel like I've lost like
Somatically,
strength,
you feel
like
it.
physical
Yeah.
strength.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sadness.
Um, to be honest, like after this whole discussion, I kind of feel like a 1
Okay.
around the sadness. I
Swabimanta.
think I feel like a 7 for sure. But
Okay.
like in a different sense of like rather than being like, oh, like I didn't bow my head unnecessarily, like I actually just like in this situation, I just feel like I would feel self-possessed, like strong.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it takes on
Yeah.
a different tone. Animosity,
Still maybe like a 3.
regret,
Again, maybe like a 3.
okay. Embarrassed
Maybe like a 1.
and self-conscious.
Again, like maybe like a 1. Yeah.
Okay. Have there been any new feelings that have come up for you as you think about like, just as people will disappoint me, I can disappoint others?
Slightly freeing, you know what I mean? Like
So you feel liberated?
slightly like I've never taken what other people do to heart, but I've always taken how I am perceived and how I do things as like this is how they should be done. Not how they should be done. Maybe it's a little bit of arrogance in that sense, but
Mhm. So you feel not humiliated, but humility.
feel humility. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Um, grief, curiosity, rationality.
It's kind of like have you ever had a close person die?
Hmm.
So I would say like after for Hindus we do like a year anniversary. It's quite common for almost every culture, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of like cathartic.
Ah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not angry. I'm just kind of like I'm like
There's a relief.
kind of like it's like that, yeah, like you know how when someone dies, the first thing that happens is sad all over again, right? But then the second time it just gets like a little bit easier, and then by like the third, you're kind of like, oh, I'm sad, but I'm also like
Hmm.
I'm okay to like look at it and be like, okay, you know what? Like I had a good year and a half with a group of people. that I felt up until a certain point appreciated me and saw me. So like maybe I can walk away with that.
Okay. Okay, so there's lots of new feelings that have come up here. Liberated, humility, cathartic,
Appreciation, yeah.
resolved, appreciation, acceptance.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to share a couple of reflections,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I'm going to ask for some of your reflections. So the purpose of this thought record was to think through a situation in a linear way to see if we can change how your thoughts impact your feelings, right? And how they shape the ways in which you move forward. Now, of course, there's a complex history here. You talked about assault. You talk about your family history, understanding yourself as a marginalized person. There was this longing and wishes to be part of a particular group. And I think, you know, as much as this may or may not be a group you go back to, because therapy is often an acknowledgement of systemic issues, but it focuses on individual awareness and change. It seems to me like you're also appreciating that there are parts of you that you lead with, or parts of you that could be combative or antagonistic. And those are pieces of you that are forms of communication. You want to be seen, heard, reassured, loved. And whatever happened in this dynamic, you got the opposite of that, right? You got like rejection,
Yeah.
ostracization,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. So I think that's something to think about. Like, what does reconciliation and mutual accountability look like in relationships? Like, can I say I'm sorry? Can I modify my behavior? Can I ask people to explicitly, um, acknowledge that my experience is different without dismissing it or washing it away? I also think it's very possible that this might not be the group of friends for you, right? But there is something troubling, not troubling, something that
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
requires a bit more attention if we get white people to listen to us because because we can, because we're like, oh, we're banking on their white guilt to be able to hold space, but then we don't have the skills
Yeah.
then to deal with people who experience the world more laterally, power
Yeah.
wise,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a new context. So
Yeah,
from what
yeah.
I'm hearing in your trajectory is that you're entering into a new space. You had a lot of hopes and dreams about what that space would be, and you're in a process of finding your space in that. And it's new for you to um not be given the kind of space you have been in the past, right?
Yeah.
So those are just some of my reflections. What has this process been like for you, or what are some reflections you've come up like that have kind of come up for you?
Well, honestly, I feel because even just this morning I was kind of going through that rumination cycle, but even just like being able to one have someone else like hold space for me to just hear me
Mhm.
out and not try and like both sides it, which like I know that
Yes.
there's always both sides to a situation, but it was nice just being able to like lay my thoughts out in a linear way, and not have someone try and both sides it and tell me where I could be wrong and why my feelings might be invalid or why the other person's feelings are more valid.
Yes.
um I definitely I feel a lot better through this exercise. I'm not gonna lie, like
Mm.
specifically to this situation, it's helped me like contextualize a lot of things.
Yes.
One thing you said like actually just like really resonated with me, and I don't know how to like move forward with like looking into it and like
I'm
approaching
going
it,
to
but
stop the screen
the
share as you
latter,
tell me this last thing so we can both be on the
sure.
screen nice and big. Yes,
Oh,
tell
sure,
me
no worries.
what's the
But
thing that stood out to you?
the last thing that you just said really, really stood out to me was about like moving from a hierarchical power structure as like a
Mm.
person that has a significant context and moving into this kind of lateral power structure. And like
Yes.
it's almost like one, it's like I've been so used to fighting for space and
Yes.
respect, not fighting, but like not being combative, but like having a
No, but
defined
there's
space
a fight. Yeah, I
now.
get it. It's a
Yeah,
symbolic fight. You take it with you.
yeah.
Yes.
And so like
Absolutely.
moving into a time, also I think an era where like that's not needed, but in some ways that almost feels like a complete disregard for the context.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
like let's be honest, like things haven't been easy. They only just got easy in the last 5 years, 6 years. But
Yes.
you know, growing up in my up to my mid-20s, you know,
Yes.
being called the F word, being called a FAG like on the
Yeah,
street
yeah,
is
yeah.
like, you know, like
Very common. And so
yeah.
that's, I think, you know, we have a history, and with that history comes a narrative, a story. And we want to honor that story and history without being overly committed to the story, because that story might not
It's
be true
taking
for
over.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think you're just treading new waters, and you're apprehensive and cautious and still trying to find your tribe. And I hope that that happens, right?
Thank you.
But you said earlier, you know, like I bring a lot of baggage. I think, I think
She
I
travels
didn't,
with a whole entourage.
yeah, like I didn't want to comment on it quite then, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think what it is I think that energy gets extinguished or more contained when you feel emotional safety. So it's not just about you having baggage, it's about you're coming into spaces with like looking for a kind of safety. And you might be a bit more combative or willing to attack someone if they're not providing it or if they're letting
Mm.
you down. Right. So I
That
think
sounds
that's
so true. Oh my God,
where the
that sounds
compassion
so
needs
true.
to come in.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds so true, especially when it's with dealing with my parents. But it's like
Okay.
who I'm out to, and they're actually like okay with it. But it's
Yes.
like I understand exactly what you're saying in that sense. Like
Yes.
right there, yeah.
My friend, that brings us to the end of our session
Thank you
today.
so much, Raheem.
You're very welcome. Can you tell folks where they can find you again if they want
Sure.
to follow your work?
Sure. So you guys can find me at Brown Gay Realness, Brown Gay Realness on YouTube, and then on
Mhm.
Instagram, Brown Guy Realness.
Yes.
You just Google one or the other and you'll find them both.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
guys.
Well, I
Thank you,
hope people
Raheem. Thank you
follow
so
your
much.
stuff. You're very welcome. I hope this has been helpful and to our listeners.
Definitely.
I hope this has been good for you. You are welcome to connect with me at any time if you want to be a guest on this show. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you. And I would love to have you as a guest on my show sometime.
Done.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the CBT Dive. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at thecbtdive.ca. You can also listen on the go wherever you get your podcasts. To follow Raheem on social media, check out ladyativan.com. See you soon.